friends, this is Gangadhar Pandey and we run a web portal called www.educlass.com, and we are into the field of the teaching and the designing software for the educational purposes. These days you might have heard the code word, that is the coding is the future, coding is the new oil, and blah blah blah. But do you understand the coding is just like learning a particular language, the way you learn English, French or German, Spanish or Sanskrit? Now the question is that why the Sanskrit got obsolete? No one is uses Sanskrit, but this is just a time pass language because the Sanskrit has no practical use. If you learn the Sanskrit, then you go into the past and derive and decode the scriptures written in the Vedas and Upanishads like that. But same way, if you do not know that how to communicate with the people, if you do not have the idea, then the programming and coding word is just a useless word for you, and you can't derive any oil out of this. So if you just want to know the coding, before that you need to know the mathematical ideas or the ideas of the physics or science where you want to implement. So just coding will not help. So I'm starting a new series called Why Only Coding Is Not Everything. You need to have the foundation and the knowledge of the fields where you apply the knowledge of coding. Watch the videos, and at the end of the videos I will just explain you with the help of a code. Thank you very much. Just subscribe to our channel and keep growing in life. So the coding is not everything. In this theme we are just taking the example that I know the Python. Now I'll be using the idea of the Python, but we need to know the mathematics and the physics also to represent a certain idea. So now the idea is that if the different cuboids or the different sized cuboids or the same sized cuboids meant materials, they are placed on the table, then they have different weights and the pressure exerted by the blocks on their own basis will also be different. This is we are going to demonstrate in this program. So the idea is that I'll be starting a class called rectangle, and since we know that the rectangle have the basic features like the length, breadth, and the cuboid is built on the rectangle, just you have to raise height to it and it will become a cuboid. And you know that the density is mass upon volume, so the mass of a block is the density into the volume. So using that we'll find the mass of that particular block in the cuboidal shape, and we will be using the idea of the physics to find the weight, that is the mass into gravity, and the idea of the pressure, that the force upon area. So now let me create this program, and so here we go. And now I create a class rectangle, then I simply I create a class rectangle and I simply initialize this variables which are length and breadth. So def underscore init underscore then self comma length length and breadth. So I'll use len comma bre for breadth and the len for length. So I will initialize them. So now just say self dot len equal to length and self dot bre equal to bre. This is the way you initialize the variables of a Python class. Now these two variables are initialized. So I create a function called the perimeter, which will be returning you the 2 times length plus breadth. So return 2 into self dot len plus self dot bre, that is the breadth. This becomes, because length and breadth are the variables of the class rectangle, so we can also use them, we can always, you can access them with the help of self dot len self dot bre. So now this is the area function, so return self dot len into self dot bre. Okay, so now this class is ready, which has the one constructor which initialize length and breadth and the perimeter and the area, and both are returning the values for perimeter and area. So I create a class cuboid, and this class will inherit the rectangle class. So in parenthesis write rectangle just as it is. It means the cuboid is inheriting rectangle. Then again cuboid have the length, breadth and height, so I will also initialize its constructor. So def underscore init in itself I'll write length, breadth and height. Then I'll initialize, because cuboid is inheriting the rectangle class, so the constructor of the rectangle class should be invoked with the help of the constructor of the cuboid class and the super keyword. So the length, and then you have to pass the two values which the rectangle class need, that are length and breadth. So I need length and breadth. Okay, so I pass these two variables for, and then I'll initialize its own variable self dot height, or h you can take self dot height equal to height. So it's just up to you, because these are the naming conventions and the naming the functions and the variables which are built by the programmer. Anything you can name. Okay, so now, and this should be, here it should be first write length comma break comma height. You can also write lbh, anything, and then the self dot height equal to height. So it should have three variables: length, breadth, and height. Length and breadth will be passed to the rectangle class, and height will be initialized here. So now I'll calculate the surface area of the cuboid. Cuboid has the 6 surface area, and it is 2 times lb plus bh plus lh, or you can say the twice lb plus twice lh plus twice lh. So if you remember, the perimeter of that class is 2 times l into b, 2 times l plus b. So if you multiply it with the self dot height, it will become 2 times lb plus 2 times bh. So I'll return self return this perimeter is 2l plus 2b, and if you multiply it will h, it will become 2lh plus 2bh. So this is what I'm trying to do. And then the area of the rectangle is length into breadth. So if you multiply the perimeter of the rectangle with height and add area of the rectangle to it, it will become all the 6 areas, all the 6 faces area, and just you have to add them up. So what I'll write this, I'm just trying to explain you. If you write on the code somewhere, then you can find that if you know the mathematics, this is what I'm trying to say. So the return 2 into, not 2 into, it's already perimeter, have the 2 in there. So the perimeter into self dot h. This is the idea of this program, that we need to know mathematics also. Only Python will not help, because Python is just like a language. So self dot perimeter into self dot h. So this gives you idea of 2lh plus 2bh, and then if you add self dot area, will become 2lb. So altogether it has become 2lb plus 2bh plus 2lh. That is the total surface area of the cuboid, and the volume is a length into breadth into height. So the area gives you the length and breadth, and if you just multiply it by height, so the return self dot area, that is the area of the rectangle class, into self dot height, which is the variable of this class. So this is the beauty of the inheritance, because I am accessing the function from the base class and I'm multiplying it with the variable of this same class, this cuboid class. So same on the same line, I just create another class, and this class name is mass, and this will be inheriting the cuboid class. So it is called the, you can say, the multi-level inheritance. The cuboid is inheriting rectangle, and the mass is inheriting cuboid. And just like similar, I have to initialize these variables, but now I have 4 variables, l, b, h, and 1 for density that I'll be using. So I'll write l comma b comma l, b, h, and d for density of the material. Okay, so with the help of super dot init, I will pass length, breadth, and height to the cuboid. Just look at the similarity. From the cuboid we pass the length and breadth to the rectangle. From mass we are passing length and breadth and height to the cuboid class, and then I'll initialize the density on its own, like the self dot d equal to d. So this is done here. Now the mass of a cuboid, because we are using the theme density, we have the volume we can get from the cuboid class, and the mass equal to density into the volume. So I'll create a class called the def mass, you can say mass of block, or the mass of the block, or mass B, mass block, and then it will return the volume that will be coming from the cuboid class. So return self dot volume, self dot volume, self dot volume, yeah, self dot d into self dot volume, because volume into density will give you the mass. So self dot d and self dot volume. So this is done now. So now I'll be accepting the length, breadth, height, and the density from the user. So you know that the density is, if you just look at the periodic table of the chemistry, then you'll find the density is the intrinsic property of the matter, and the different substances have different densities. And the densities for a pure substance, like if you have a block of pure gold or pure copper or pure, its mass will be fixed for a given shape. And so I'll be accepting the this length of the block, and then okay, so I just copy and paste. So because I'm accepting these values, length, breadth, and height, from the user, and you see that the first and second I make as the breadth, the length, breadth, and height, and all these are getting in the form of a string. So I'm just converting them into the integer by typecasting, or you can say by converting them. So that's why I have put the int and then input enter the length of the block. So for densities, since it comes in decimal numbers, I'll better name it float. So this is float. So the int, and then the length of the block will be expressed in centimeter. Breadth will also be expressed in centimeter, and then this value will also be expressed into this gram per cc. So now you see that this is the idea of the mass equal to, I just creating the object of mass. So mass equal to mass capital, and this is the length, breadth, and height, length, breadth, height, and density, all I'll pass. So length, breadth, height, and density. So I simply, with the help of mass, so okay, so I just named it block 1, or better I write MB, M block. So this is my block, or M block. So this is okay. So let me create so one thing, yeah, M block is fine. So I think it's better if I introduce some features like the name of the metal, because we are using density. So the density is a characteristic property. So I'll write here self dot name equal to name. So the mass class have now 5 parameters: length, breadth, height, density, and the name. So let me make one more statement so that the user can enter the name of the metal. And yes, so now M block object is ready. So the class length, breadth, height. Okay, so now let me print the information that will be published from the calling the different functions of the class. So first is that the printf, then I make it as a name of the metal. And then I'll attach the name to it plus M block dot name. This is the self dot name from the class M mass, and since the M block represents the object of the mass class, we can write that M block dot name. If you have any problem, then you can watch my previous videos how the classes and the other things are made. So the mass of the metal, okay, name of the metal, mass of the metal. Since the every information has been entered into the CGS unit like the centimeter, and gram per cc, so the mass will also be returned as a something in gram. So we need to convert this into kg just by dividing it by 1000. So M block dot mass block divided by 1000, and then I just try to convert this into string so that it can be concatenated with the mass of the metal and the plus with kg. Now it has become kg. This bracket is extra. This bracket, yes, this parenthesis is extra, so I remove it. Then the weight of the metal is, you all know that the weight is mass into acceleration due to gravity. W is mg. So the weight of the metal block will be the mass of the metal block multiplied by acceleration due to gravity, and on the earth in the SI unit it is 9.8 meter per second square or Newton per kg. So this is our mass, weight and the name. Then we need to find the pressure. Okay, sorry, weight should be in Newton, SI unit of weight. So the next is pressure. Pressure is force upon area, or you can say the weight upon area. But here for our convenience we will be using the idea as the Newton per centimeter square. So just divide the pressure is weight upon area. So STR on its base, yeah, and the base means on the base which has got the area length into breadth. So again this is 9.8, so 9.8 into, and then this whole thing should be divided by area, and the area is a function of the rectangle class, and that can also be accessed with the help of the same M block object. This is also, so the M block object can access all the functions and the variables from the rectangle class, from the cuboid class, and also from the mass class. So this unit I'll just try to keep it as Newton per centimeter squares. So I write cm square or cm square. Okay, this is just for demonstration purpose. Nobody uses Python for this terminal like programming approach. They use GUI features. Now let me run. Name of the metal is nickel, and then the length of the block I keep it 10. So you can use different metals when they keep the dimension of the block, so you can understand which one is heavier and which one exerts more pressure on them. Okay, so argument. Okay, I think while making the object we made a mistake. While making the object we need to pass all those because the mass now have the 5 parameters, which is now here only 4. So let me write name here, and then I hope everything is right. Again I'm sure it will be a mistake because it's not in the proper order, because there the name is at the end and here the name is at the, while calling I'm putting the name at first. So again there'll be error. Okay, let me get back to the code, because the order should also remain same. The type, the order of the arguments should not be manipulated. So its name is first, it should be actually the name should be at the end, because the length, breadth, height, name. Look at this object. So the name of the object, okay, so the L, B, H, D and name, so the name should be at the last, and here, okay, so yeah, L, B, H, D name, so this name should not be at the beginning, this should be at the end. So the length, breadth, height, density and the name. Now I pretty sure everything is okay. So enter the nickel I'm using because density I just saw in the periodic table it was 8.9 closed, so 10, 8, 5 and then 8.9. so now you see the name of the metal is the nickel, mass is 3.56, the weight is 34.888 Newton, and the pressure on this block is, thank you very much. Just to keep on entering the different names and the different densities, and you will find that this is all going to work. Thank you very much. Just subscribe to channel and learn more. Have a nice time.